Hi, Uniquely Cindy here. Glad you could join me tonight. We're going to be discussing the custom of covering mirrors in our homes at the time of death of a departed loved one. What we're doing basically, and you will see this in different homes for those that still hold the custom, many cultures, they will go through and they will cover the mirrors. And these mirrors will stay covered through a time of mourning. Now, the custom of this is to show respect to the one that has passed on. It is a time of honoring them and giving them your undivided attention in reality. Now, culture and historical reasons, there's many across the board as to why this was done. It's not practiced as much today, but it used to be deeply practiced in the Deep South, and there's other cultures that still practice it. But one of the oldest that I remember hearing was that mirrors are reflections of the souls, and souls can become trapped in the mirrors. Now, we know this is folklore, and we know this is myth, but it made people feel good to cover those mirrors so that they felt like nothing could happen. This went back to Victorian England. American South and parts of Asia believed that the mirrors could trap the souls. They also believed that there were portals and that they had omens. Older superstitions viewed mirrors as gateways into the afterlife, and that at the time of death, the veil between life and death was very thin. And by covering these mirrors, they helped guard so that a reflection of the coffin or a reflection of the departed loved one could not be seen in that mirror, thereby possibly haunting the loved ones of the home. Also, it actually avoids vanity. In Jewish tradition, mirrors are covered during Shiva. And I hope I pronounced that right. Forgive me if I did not. It stops the mourners from reflecting on themselves and how they look, but rather focus on the departed loved one in humility and mourning for that lost soul. It also symbolizes a pausing of normal life. Draping or turning mirrors around backwards shows that something's changed, that something, it is a visual sign that something is no longer routine in this household and it has been suspended. It also reduces visual shock. You know, when you walk past a mirror and you see your hair out of place, you're automatically going to fix it. When you walk by the mirror and you've been crying and you've been mourning and grieving and you see yourself in the mirror, sometimes it's a shock factor to those individuals. And so they're also covered to help reduce that shock factor. Now, what a covering of a mirror is really symbolizes, what it really doing is a mirror reflects you back to yourself. In ordinary times, that can be useful, but during the time of grieving, it's something that many of us don't want to see. It's also most grounded sense is the custom functions like a gentle environmental adjustment. It reduces visual noises around us. We are very much motivated by things we see, things we feel, and things that we touch. And by covering the mirrors, by stopping the clocks, by pulling the drapes, it produces a calmer interior space for mourning. Now, this was more customary when loved ones were either left in the home and they took care of everything, as we see in a lot of mountain traditions, Amish traditions, and other traditions around the world, where they take care of their deceased in their homes of the deceased. Now, with funeral homes and all, we don't see this custom practiced as much anymore, but it is a time of stopping and reflecting. This is why the story behind the covering of the mirrors, the legends and the myth, while they are framed in superstition after death, the emotional mechanism is really deeply practical. The symbolism runs deep. In many traditions, death is treated as that threshold. Mirrors, because they appear to open into outer space, made people think that it was a threshold between life and death. During Jewish mourning, as Shiva, we talked about, I believe it's 7 days. I may be incorrect on that, but I believe it's 7 days that the mirrors will stay covered. In many countries, it also symbolizes looking forward, okay? Because, you know, The mourning is going to end. Doesn't mean we love our loved ones any less. It doesn't mean that what we do by covering the mirrors is taking them away. It just means that we're honoring, we're respecting them. In the Jewish practice, covering the mirrors was not meant to frighten the mourners. It was meant to create a home environment that supports mourning as a sacred time. There's many different, and I'm looking at some cheat sheets here. There are so many different things that covering the mirrors represent. There are many different things that they help us with in dealing with the death of a loved one. During the 19th century, Anglo-American and British Isles mourning customs, covering of the mirror often appeared alongside the household rituals as stopping. Whenever a loved one passed away in the home, everything stopped. They would shut the clocks off. They would pull the curtains closed, creating a temporary stillness. Something has changed in the dynamics of a home. I remember the only home funeral I ever attended or ever remembered seeing was my grandfather's. And I remember the whole atmosphere of the home changed while my grandfather's coffin was lying in state in my grandmother's home. In Scotland, the practice also appears in folk custom to note the moment of death. At the moment of death, the mirrors are covered, the clocks are stopped, and other functions within the home will also stop. In Ireland, custom is often mentioned walking hand in hand with the wake, and mirrors are turned to the walls during the time of the wake, and different areas have different time periods of wakes. I have been to wakes that last for a week, and I have read about wakes that can last for just 24 hours. It really depends on the customs of the country and the custom of the funeral practices in that area. Today, with modern mortuaries, we can keep a person able to be viewed more than 24 hours. In your Amish community, in your Jewish community, some of your Jewish community, and in your Mennonites, and your mountain areas, they bury their dead very quickly. And usually 24 to 48 hours, the dead is buried. Several months ago, I talked about some of the Appalachian customs where they would prepare the bodies in the home. The women would prepare women, men would prepare men. They would dig the grave, and everything would happen within a 24-hour period so that they could get the bodies in the ground. Granted, most of this did take place before modern mortuary, and or still takes place if the people do not believe, whether religious or tradition, do not believe in embalming. Now, across the variations of all the different customs, the practice is less in believing in the folklore and more about marking. It creates a temporary environment where grief is allowed to be normal. It's a dominant reality. In our society today, it seems like we want to bottle up grief. We want to rush it out the door. But grief is a real process, and everybody grieves differently. And by doing some of these things in stopping time, the people were allowed for grief to become dominant, and everyday life ceased so that they could grieve properly. In your Chinese customs, one of the things that I found interesting is they believed that if they saw the reflection, they would cover the mirrors because they believed they saw the reflection of the coffin or the reflection of the dead person, that it would bring bad fortune onto the family in which the coffin and all was in. So I thought that was very interesting. If you zoom out of the details of covering the mirrors and stopping the clocks and pulling the curtains, and you deal more with the handful of themes, you will find that preventing the spirit from lingering or becoming caught in the reflection, a common strand of funeral folklore. That's a point that you're going to find when you find people dealing. I've even heard people say it stops the spirit from getting caught in the mirror. It reduces vanity. These are the bullet points that it does for people. It causes self-focus. You're not going to walk by a mirror, you know. I've seen people can't walk by a mirror without looking in it and primping and checking everything. That's not the time for it. It avoids the unsettling images during wakes of viewing your own face in a state of shock. It protects the household by symbolically closing liminal objects. That's a tongue twister. And in some traditions, it prevents the coffin from being reflected in the glass. Now, in the South, we have a custom that causes some people to cringe. I know when my husband, first time I did it, my husband absolutely cringed. We take pictures at funerals as a way also of remembering our loved ones. And so it's not so much that Southerners revere the reflections of their loved ones in the mirrors. It's more of a sign of respect and honor. It creates a visible sign that ordinary life is paused, which supports the mourners who need permission to step out of social performance. You know, in the society we live in, I need to go to a funeral, I need Friday off from work. Well, who was it that died? How did they die? And there's 121 questions. And, you know, we need to realize that grieving is natural. Grieving is, and everybody grieves differently. And we need to let people grieve. But while they're also grieving, we also need to realize that life goes on. While keeping the heart of this tradition, in the end, covering the mirrors is less about believing one story over another, but honoring one truth, that grief is disorienting, that it changes how a room feels, how the room moves. It changes how your own face can look unfamiliar in a mirror. The tradition persists because people's needs, because it also meets people where their needs are, where they're shaken, where they're tender, where they're trying to create a little protection for the mind and the heart. If you choose to keep the tradition of covering the mirrors, you don't have to cover it up with a folk tale. You don't have to cover it up with a horror story. Just, this is how we honored our dead in our family, in our culture. We cover our mirrors. When the time comes, uncovering that mirror is just as symbolic. For as you take the covers and the drapes off, you're signifying, I hadn't forgot my loved one. I still love them. I still miss them. But life goes on. So the tradition of covering the mirrors, stopping the clocks, drawing the drapes is an old and ancient tradition. It's a wonderful tradition. There are some old traditions that I wish we could bring back. I know it would be more of a personal representation or personal showing how it's done, because as a society it may be something we never bring back. But it does have deep meaning and it does have deep symbolism. So if you cover your mirrors, don't hang your head and don't hide it behind a horror story. It is representing an honor to your loved ones. So I hope you enjoyed this. This is Uniquely Cindy here with a unique tradition of covering mirrors, stopping clocks, and pulling the drapes to show our dead honor and respect. And I hope you enjoyed it. Hit that like and subscribe button below. Leave a comment. Let me know if there's a topic that you would like to discuss, and I'll do some research on it for you. You have a unique afternoon. Goodbye.